All right, I started reading Sartori, Tense Before Temples, Rough Drafts on Building a Culture That Lasts, Volume 2. I don't know where Volume 1 is, and this one starts with Part 4, Culture Building. And the contents, table of contents says there is a Part 4, Culture Building, which is large, like 331 pages. And then there's a Part 5, Confrontation. Sounds cool, but it's very small. Maybe it reflects something about Sartori. And then Part 6, Celebration. So this is mostly about culture. And in this first one, I guess I'm starting in what would be chapter 29. It's Lewis and Tolkien, Myth and Stories, Part 1. And it's good. For Michael, I would have enjoyed being a first reader in a Google document where I could help with, a few grammar mistakes and ask a few questions. But I'm enjoying it. I'm impressed. It's good quality. But I'm going to go through some notes. So there's, I'm enjoying it. And, Sartori said something about scars, that scars don't heal. And what's interesting is my scars may not heal, but I like big butts, and I cannot lie. I can try to make sure that I don't cause the same scars in others. So, there's truth, and then there's more truth. Sartori, he points out the Garden of Eden at some point. He says, the backward-looking view to discover what went wrong will take us all the way back to the Garden of Eden and the fall of man. Then we are faced with the decision to blame God for making the tree, for creating the serpent, or for creating the woman, just as Adam did. Yet to arrive at such a conclusion is to equate ourselves with God, believing we are wiser than him, the same sin committed by the man and the serpent. And I would just say, for me, the word blame, like, what's the difference between the word blame and the word credit? And I think even the words we use show our hand, show our worldview. And so it's good I like to try out worldviews. But I would say, when we equate ourselves with God, God allowed it, and God responds. And so I'll just try to integrate even the point that Sartori makes. I would integrate it into trust, trusting God. So the next part in this chapter is titled The Idolatry of Agrarianism. And I like all these things that Sartori are pointing out. There is a temptation towards asceticism, ascetic lifestyles. And he compares the trees of the Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. He sees the relationship between the trees there and the cathedrals. And so I'll read this part. There is a school of thought that says Adam ate the fruit because he was afraid of losing Eve. If that's true, it was not the wrong thing to do. God took away the garden, but he did not separate the man and the woman. Adam may well have longed for Eden the way that Tolkien portrays the hobbit's love for the Shire, but God expelled him with the most valuable thing of all. I do not think that Tolkien would disagree with this personally, and I am sure that he would have just as gladly cut down all the trees in England to save his own wife. It is the interpretation of others that misses the mark. And what is good? Is it good to cut down all the trees in England to save your wife? That's the question. And so Sartori reveals his hand here. That's the problem. That's the risk. It's not a problem. It's just the risk in writing is that you reveal your soul. So I'm getting to, what's cool is that I love Sartori. I support what he's doing. And now I'm getting to know more about his soul. I'm getting to know more about his spirit, which would be probably more accurate. Because, spirit changes. There's something like he talks about character. And so there's something about character that doesn't really change. It's kind of like our scars. But our spirit can change. And so we get a glimpse at Sartori's spirit here. That he would destroy all of the trees for his wife. And his wife that will cause his wife to feel a certain way. And the feelings for Sartori and his wife will be connected to their personal relationship with the creator of all things. And the importance being put on this world. That's the risk. I think Sartori and I share a similar spirit. We definitely share a similar spirit. And I think that it could end up being like a defect. That we can care too much for this material world. So that's what we get to wrestle with. And maybe he'll discuss that in the end when he talks about wrestling with God. Okay, the next section is called Humble Heroes. And it's like he took I don't know, there was a little political jab there, a little side jab. This is the view taken by various stripes of traditionalists in regard to the future. Christians are not the only ones who think this way. I guess I need to read the context. The context would be that true character is revealed in trying times, but what is miscommunicated in Tolkien's work is where the competency of character emerges within the system of the Shire. When hopeful Christians absorb the narrative of Lord of the Rings as an addendum to the Bible, they tend to project an almost idolatrous hope of salvation on the bucolic lifestyle of the hobbits. The narrative of Scripture, read through a Tolkien-tinged worldview, will read like this. Frodo, Samwise, Merry, and Pippin replied to him, King Saruman, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. This is the view taken by various stripes of traditionalists in regard to the future. Christians are not the only ones who think this way. The same could have been said by the liberal voters who were certain Donald Trump would not be elected in 2016, and by the conservative voters who were certain he could not lose in 2020. The problem is the adoption of a worldview that does not account for the chaotic unknown, the unexpected, or the immediate triumph of evil or good. The Christian hope is in an ultimate eschatological good, eschatological good. But until the final victory, we cannot afford to ignore any temporary defeats. This truth is revealed in the next verse. And he quotes Daniel 3:18. So Sartori cares very much for this world. So like what is within each of us, our spirit is shaped by how much we know God, how much we love God, and how much we know about God's creation, including this world and all the other worlds. And so if we and it's very natural for us to not know much about the worlds beyond this world. And that's why, Sartori talks about saving your wife, cutting down all the trees in the land to save your wife. And that's a care for this world, a great care for this world, and perhaps even satanic. We can care for this world so much that a satanic spirit can grip us. And I know this spirit. I'm familiar. I'm intimately familiar with the spirit that cares too much for this world. And so he says the Christian hope is in an ultimate eschatological good, right? And what's cool about Sartori's work here is he's going to try and point at what the ultimate eschatological good looks like, and that's cool. Like, it's really fun. Or a big but, there are many very good stories about potential futures. And it will depend on how much you care about multi-world, right? How many worlds did our Creator create? How many worlds are beyond this world? And so if your story only cares for this world and ignores all other worlds beyond this world, if you're only caring about this world and the future of this world, then, and if there are other worlds, which that's the big question. Are there other worlds, right? So your idea of what would be ultimately eschatologically good will depend on if you believe in other worlds and the primacy of worlds, which worlds are more important than the other worlds. And this is what's true. What's cool is this is true even within this world, within your culture, within your family. Will you love your wife more than you will love all other husbands' wives? Will you sacrifice all other husbands' wives for your own wife? And it's similar with the political jab. The next part where I have a highlight is in a section called Mythmakers of Today, Architects of the Future. Though he has been called the American Tolkien, George Martin's unfinished work reflects his failure to do this. What is this? He should have left his work unpublished until he found the conclusion. If he had done this, unlike Adam and Eve, he could have gone back to discover what went wrong, even if it had been on the first page of the first book. If you go back to the first page of the first book, you have to decide how many worlds there are and how many worlds you will care for And who are you writing the book for? And I like that Sartori points out that we write for ourselves. And what I've noticed is that when I write for myself, I end up creating worlds that other people won't be interested in. There's within my worlds, within my writing, the thoughts I receive. It's too much. It's too much for people to handle. It's too much for people to wrestle with. It's too complex. Humans can only handle so much complexity. Like you have the average human and their capacity to handle complexity. And then even the humans who can handle a lot of complexity, is how enjoyable is it? It's a lot of work. So my writing, the thoughts I want, that I enjoy, are too much work. It's not enjoyable. Yeah, and that's a world like Michael. But yeah, creating and writing is good, and Sartori's encouraging it. And we get to learn more about Sartori. He has revealed. He has taken off his clothes. He has revealed himself. It takes courage, Sartori. It takes courage. No, it's very, yeah. I would encourage others to do the same. This is good. What's interesting is we can reveal our potential defects, and we are always revealing our potential defects. I'm doing it right now. I'm revealing my potential defects. And then different people will have different assessments based on their world, their worldview, their perspective. How many worlds are within each person's worldview? How much complexity can each person's worldview how much complexity is within each person's worldview? So Sartori then points at a better candidate for the American Tolkien, which is James Oliver Rigney, best known by the pen name of Robert Jordan. Jordan's epic fantasy series, The Wheel of Time, spanned a massive 15 volumes and, like Tolkien, required posthumous help to be completed. The ending of his tale was crafted by Jordan himself, and unlike Martin, the path towards that end was clear. So Sartori is advocating for a very nice pattern of having the end in mind and a path towards that end. I would add on to it the possibility of having many ends in mind and many paths toward each end. That's a lot of complexity, but I'd advocate for that as well. And so I have some more highlights, and that he points out, he says, when the series finally ended, and this is Robert Jordan, some people were upset that it did not provide the type of ending hoped for by some. Some people were upset that it did not provide the type of ending hoped for by some. That's an interesting use of words. My children. I gotta get the copyright. Got music in the background. Though it should have been predicted. It provides as much closure as anyone can expect in the story of their own life. The final outcome is perceived through faith alone. And what is faith? What is faith? So Jordan has the two rivers, and so Sartori is pointing at Jordan and the two rivers and a cyclical kind of story where there is a cultural wisdom and experience, unlike where cultural wisdom and experience throughout groups of people, and is unlike, Tolkien with the races and the classes. And so the next section is called Going Beyond Class to Culture. And Sartori says interesting things. He likes how the story, Jordan's story, maps into our world, our reality better than Tolkien's story and perhaps Lewis's stories. And he starts to point at the good culture. Sartori points at the good culture of problem solvers who rely on the wisdom learned through simple skills. And this, this will rhyme with his tectonic school, and I like this. But he does say, he says, what is most startling about these characters? He lists out the main characters, some of the main characters from The Wheel of Time, Jordan's Wheel of Time, is their relational fortitude. This is, of course, where Tolkien's hobbits also shone most brightly in their loyalty towards one another. The protagonists in Jordan's work have times of disagreement, but when they come together, they are stronger for their ability to rely on each other. And so what's important there is cooperation. And I'll point at Sartori as like, maybe I could have cooperated with you in, some of your word choice and where you have just simple mistakes, right? Cooperation's good. And let's see. He's trying to point at healthy community, perhaps asking the question of what is a healthy community, and looking toward Jordan's work as, a work of fiction which can help us, try to ask the right questions. And then he points out some values and some characteristics. He likes how Jordan tries to point out some good values and characteristics. For example, abstinence before marriage. And he does do a shout out to a few other books, one of which caught my attention because Sartori says is a great example of a good husband and father, Pa Ingles from The Little House. So that was interesting. And so character and values are important. Sartori says character and values are important. And the only thing I would add is, so are the character defects. And that way I would say some type of honesty and transparency is important, so that we, with ourselves and with each other, our strengths and weaknesses. And so, my character defects would be like some that came to mind this morning in my conversation with my wife is impulsiveness, wanting to be liked, and there was a third one. But yeah, those are two: my impulsiveness and wanting to be liked. And so that was the chapter 29 in volume 2 of Tents Before Temples. I think it's good so far. I love Sartori's mind, and I love the idea of us getting to the core of what's important po- trying to point out the destination where we want to go. Obviously, I have my own thoughts, and I actually think we need to get in a habit of trying to understand each other's views. And I've been talking to my wife about this. I talked to Yosef about this. It's challenging for others to understand my views because everyone expects that a human, if you are a human who is gripped by views, you expect the other human to be gripped by views. And this human tries to be gripped by as few views as possible. And this human tries to be able to look at views and try them out and see the defects, see the risks, try to weigh them and measure them and try them out in different contexts and situations. And so there's so much complexity that I'm probably cursed that no one will ever be able to, see through these eyes. And that's okay. And so a culture of trying to listen and understand the other person's view, and then a practice of doing that and doing it well is good. And I would say that I haven't found a culture who does it well. But there are cultures, each culture will do it with a degree of skill. And so, yeah, I'm a perfectionist. I want more. And, what's been called this little corner of the internet, does it better than many. I didn't find any cultures that were doing it better than this little corner of the internet. And then I recently found another little group that may be doing it better than this little corner of the internet. And then also, I'm trying to practice doing it better than, I'm trying to do it as to the best that I can possibly do it. So, character defect, perhaps? Perfectionism? I don't think that's as bad as the impulsiveness and the wanting to be liked by others. And remembering that we are all children. We are all like babies. The language we use confuses. The idea that we were babies and then we were children and then we were adults. It's like, we don't, our culture wants to argue about what is a man and what is a woman. It's like, how about we argue about what is an adult? Because what I'm seeing is that there are no adults. There are no adults. Everyone is a baby. Everyone is an infant. And I know that sounds pretty condescending. But it only sounds condescending to infants. Actually, If it sounds condescending, it's you've reached the kind of toddler phase of saying, I'm not a baby, but it's a lie. And and a lot of times we learn to say, I'm not a baby, because we were told, don't be such a baby. Don't be a baby. And so we've imagined, we try to pretend, we put on a mask and pretend like we're not a baby. And we're all babies.